Hello and welcome. In this video tutorial, I'm going to create a two-page website scenario project called Pacific Trails Resort. The client has provided a wireframe sketch of the page layout, which will include a header, navigation, main, div, and footer elements. The first thing that I'm going to do is to create a folder named Chapter 2. So I'm making sure that I have my Visual Studio Code open, and I'm at the CIS 152 folder, and I'm going to right-click in this space right in this area right here. I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to say New Folder. And I'm going to say Chapter 2. And I'm going to hit the Enter key. I'm going to right-click on my Chapter 2 folder, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to name this Pacific. And I'm going to hit Enter. So I have my Chapter 2 folder, and then inside of that, a Pacific. If I'm kind of concerned that this doesn't look like it's a folder, I can always go out to my File Explorer, go to my desktop where that folder is located, the CIS 152, and I can look inside. So I have, here's the root folder, my Chapter 1, my Chapter 2. If I double click on Chapter 2, I can see that that is a folder, and it is called Pacific, and it is an empty folder. So that's good. So now I'm going to right-click on the specific folder, and I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call this index.html, and I'm going to hit Enter. All right, so I have a Chapter 2 folder. Inside of that, I have another folder called Pacific, and now I have an index.html page. The index.html page is going to be the home page for the Pacific Trails Resort website. It is a common practice to use the file name index.html for the home page of a website. When your web hosting server receives a request for this index.html page, this file will typically be the default file for your home page. The browser will not display the index.html file name in its address bar. My index.html file is completely blank. I'm going to use the Emmet shortcuts to create the basic HTML markup structure. Make sure that you refer to the Emmet cheat sheet documentation at emmet.io. I'm going to go ahead and type the exclamation point and then the tab key. And voila! The HTML structure of my web page has been created. I'm going to update the page title with the company's name, as this is a good choice for a business document. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on the word document, and I'm going to go ahead and type in Pacific Trails Resort. In the body section of this web page, I'm going to go ahead and put my cursor, and then I'm going to add a header element. And inside this element, I'm going to add an H1 tag. So I'm going to type in header. I'm going to use the angle bracket, H1, and I'm going to use curly braces. So inside of the curly braces, I'm going to type the content of this headline, which is going to be Pacific Trails Resort. And then I'm going to press the tab key. Okay, perfect, that worked. All right, I have my header and I have my H1 element with my content between the tags. After the header element, I'm going to add the nav element. I'm going to keep things simple for now, and I'm just going to type the word nav. So I'm going to select the Enter key, nav, and then tab. And inside of this element, I would like an unordered list. I'm deviating from the textbook information, and instead I'm going to add an unordered list instead of just typing the bold text. An unordered list starts with the UL tag, so UL, and I'm going to use that right angle bracket once again, and I'm going to add in my list items. Each list item is going to start with the LI tag, so LI, and I want all of these list items also to have an anchor tag around them. So I'm going to add in that A tag as well. So I've got my list items, and I'm going to do times 4, and then the right angle bracket in A. So this line of code is going to nest elements inside of each other. Now I am between the nav tags, but I can still utilize the Emmet shortcut. So I'm going to go ahead and press the tab key. Perfect. So between the href attribute, double quotation marks, you can see that my cursor is blinking. And I'm going to add the value index.html. And then I'm going to go after the closing right angle bracket and before the closing anchor tag, and I'm going to type in the word home. And this will be my home page. So after the closing anchor tag and before the closing list item, you're going to make sure that you type in the word home. Between the next set of double quotation marks, I'm going to go ahead and type in yurts.html. And then I'm going to go between the closing right angle bracket and the closing anchor tag, and I'm going to type in yurts. I'm going to go to the next line, and between the quotation marks, the double quotation marks, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in activities dot, I want to make sure I spell that correctly, .html. And I'm going to type in the word activities. And my last list item is going to be reservations. So I want to make sure that I'm between the double quotation marks here. Reservations.html. And I'm going to type in the word reservations. It would be a good idea at this point to pause the video and look over your work. Does your work match my work? Did you use all lowercase letters when you created your HTML pages? If not, you need to correct this before you move forward. The name of the page before the closing A tag is supposed to begin with a capital letter. Once you've made sure your work is correct, let's save it and see what we created. So I'm going to do File, Save. I have a couple of ways to view my web page file output. Since I've already installed the Live Server extension, I see two icons on the right, one for Show Preview and one for Split Editor. I'll select Show Preview to view the interpreted HTML code. You may want to keep this preview open. To maximize the preview area, collapse the Explorer section by clicking the Files icon. Click it again to expand it. To close the preview window, click the X next to the Pacific Trails Resort title. Another way to view your index.html file is by right-clicking and selecting Reveal in File Explorer. This will take you to the file's location. From here, you can right-click and Open With to open it in a browser. When I hover over the hyperlinks, I see a hand icon indicating they are links. However, these links aren't functional yet since the pages haven't been created. If I right-click, I can also see my source code. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to return back to Visual Studio Code. From here, I'm going to continue on to the next part. So after my nav element, I'm going to go ahead and put in a space, and I'm going to type in main. I'm going to use my right angle bracket and H2, and I'm going to put in curly braces the content, enjoy, nature, and luxury. I'm just going to use the right directional arrow key. I'm going to add a plus sign. So that's going to give me a sibling of the H2. After that plus sign, I'm going to put the paragraph, the letter P for paragraph, and then I'm going to put in my curly braces, and I'm going to type in the content for that paragraph tag. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. All right, so I've finished typing in that paragraph content, and I'm going to select the tab key. So another modification that I had to make to Visual Studio Code is when I typed the paragraph, all this content information ran all the way across the page. I couldn't even see it. To solve this problem, I went to the View menu and I selected Word Wrap. And now it has a check mark next to it, and all of the words are now available to be seen in my window display. In my code, you can see that I have misspelled the words California and private. If Visual Studio Code is not displaying any of your misspelled words, you can try manually triggering a spell check to see if the misspelled words get underlined. Press Ctrl plus Shift plus P if you're on a window, or Command plus Shift plus P on a Mac OS, and type in spell. And the first one that comes up for me is show spelling issues. So you can go ahead and type in show spelling issues if it doesn't come up, and make sure that this is selected. This will force a recheck of the file and display any misspelled words. To correct these errors, I'm going to put my cursor in the misspelled word California, and then a blue hyperlink appears with the words Quick Fix. And if I select this, I'll get a list of suggestions for the correct spelling. And I'll select the first one, which is California. The word private, I can do the same thing, or I can select Control plus period. I'm going to go ahead and select Quick Fix, and I'm going to select private. I'm going to go ahead and save my work, Control S. Spell checkers are an excellent tool that is a must-have for any web developer. All right, I'm going to go ahead and continue on. One of the things that I'm going to do is above the main element, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in the Emmet shortcodes that I just used so that I will have a record of this in my file to use as a reference later on. So I'm going to type in main, the right angle bracket, H2, the curly braces, and then I used the plus sign and the paragraph tag and the curly braces. And I'm just going to highlight this and do Control/. And that goes ahead and creates an HTML comment. So one of the things I wanted to explain was after the H2 and the paragraph elements, I added those curly braces so that I could add the text content between the curly braces. Now, you may not want to be as advanced at this time, but at least you're being introduced to a software that greatly improves your workflow and your code accuracy. If using Emmet shortcuts proves to be too much for you at this time, then feel free to write each HTML statement as it is indicated in your textbook. So I'm going to go back up here to where my nav element was, and I'm going to also type in the nav, and then UL, and then ×4, and then A. And I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to select Control plus the / key to add in a comment, so that I have my comments for how I am creating these blocks of code. Now there's still more content that we need to add between our main element, as referenced by the wireframe diagram that is in your textbook. So after this closing paragraph tag, I'm going to give myself some space, and I'm going to type in UL, the right angle bracket, list item, so LI ×4, because I want 4 list items. And I'm going to select the tab key. This time, I'm going to go ahead and add in my comment before I forgot what I did. So I'm going to go on line 33. I'm going to add in a return. I'm going to type in UL, the right angle bracket, LI ×4. I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to do Control and the / key. So now between my closing list item, I'm going to go ahead and type in the following content in the unordered list, but I'm going to pause the video so that you don't have to watch me type this in. All right, I went ahead and created all the content that goes between each list item, and I made sure to correct any misspellings. I'm going to add a div, and inside of that div, I'm going to add a paragraph. So after the UL tag, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in div, right angle bracket, and P. Now, I'd also like to duplicate this code so that I can go ahead and comment it. So I'm just going to highlight it and do Ctrl+D. And I'm going to hit Shift Enter. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and comment the first one. So Control//, and then after this P tag, I'm going to select Tab. All right, so how I did this duplicate, because I went up to my edit menu to see duplicate and I couldn't find it. So let me show you how I added that. In my software, I had to manually edit the keybindings.json file. To open the keybindings.json file, I press the keys Control, Shift, and the letter P. And then, as you can see at the top, I went ahead and I typed in preferences and then open keyboard shortcuts, and then make sure it says JSON. And then I added the following configuration. So I started with a bracket, and then a brace, and then these 3 lines. So make sure that yours is typed exactly like this. And then when you're done, save the file. Just did Ctrl+S to save. If I go back to my index.html, by updating this keyboard binding, I can now use Ctrl+D to duplicate. I'm just going to put my cursor in front of this just to show you, and then Ctrl+D, and it will duplicate the line for me. Inside of this paragraph, I'm going to go ahead and type in Pacific Trails Resort, and then I'm going to go ahead and put a space and BR and then tab. I'm going to go to the next line, and I'm going to type in the address, which is 12010 Pacific Trails Road, and a space, and then BR, and then tab. I'm going to add in the city and state, Zephyr, California, and it's going to be 95555, a space, and then BR, and then tab. And then I'm going to put in the phone number, which is 888 hyphen 555 hyphen 5555. And I'm going to save that. So Control+S, or you can go up to the top and do File and Save. I'm going to go ahead and right-click, and I'm going to open my default browser. And I just wanted to check my work. So I've got my navigation, my H2 tag, a paragraph, and my unordered list, and my contact information. All right, let me go back into Visual Studio Code and continue on. And if you notice on our wireframe layout, the footer element is going to be outside of the main element. So I'm going to go outside of the main element, and I'm going to put in a couple of returns, and I'm going to type footer, and I want to have a paragraph in here, and I want to have actually 2 paragraphs times 2, and I'm going to once again duplicate this code, so I'm going to highlight it and Control+D, and I will put a return, and then I'm going to highlight this one, and I'm going to do Control//, and the second one after the number 2, I'm just going to select the Tab key. In the first paragraph, they want us to add in small text using the small element and italic font style using the I phrase element. So I'm going to type in small and then tab. And then I'm going to type in I and then tab. So I is for italics. I'm going to go ahead and type in the copyright symbol, and remember it is the ampersand sign and the word copy. So I'm going to type in the word copy, right? And then it's the ampersand and then copy, and that will give us that symbol. And the year is 2021. And then I'm going to type Pacific Trails Resort. In the paragraph on the bottom, I'm just going to add in my name. And I want to save this to make sure that I have this correct. So Control+S is save. And I'm going to go ahead and view this in my browser. I'm just going to refresh. Okay, so that looks really good. Now there's one other change I'd like to make. Now the other thing that you could do if you don't like your name being on another line, you could highlight this, Control X, and outside of closing small, you could put in a pipe, which is above the Enter key, so hold on the Shift key, the pipe symbol, and then Control V, which is paste. And let me just check that out, save that, and make sure that I like that before I remove this other paragraph. So I'll refresh. So if you like this style a little bit better, you can do it this way as well. I think I'm going to go ahead and keep that, and I'm just going to remove my paragraph, my extra paragraph, and I'm going to save that. All right, so far so good. I've corrected any misspellings, and my code is lined up beautifully. Now that I have created the home page for my Pacific Trails Resort, I'm going to use this page as my template to create the Yurts page. The Yurts page is going to have a lot of similar content from this file. I'm going to go to the File menu, and I'm going to choose Save As. And it's going to go in the Chapter 2 Pacific folder, and I'm now going to name this Yurts.html. And make sure that your file name is in lowercase, and there's no spaces. I'm going to select Save. Now my Yurts page is open in my window display. And all I need to do is update some of the content. I'm going to start with the title tag, and after the word resort, I'm going to put in a space, and I'm going to use the Shift key, and I'm going to select the colon, and I'm going to put a space, and I'm going to type in Yurts. I'm going to go to my H2 tag, and right here is my H2 tag where it says Enjoy Nature and Luxury. I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to type in the Yurts at Pacific Trails. I'm going to go ahead and delete the paragraph, the unordered list, and the contact information. So all the way to this closing div tag and before the closing main tag. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the delete key. So all that I have left is the H2 tag, and I want to make sure that I do keep my footer information. Don't delete that. The Yurts page is going to contain a list with questions and answers. We're going to add this content to the page using a description list. We're going to use the DT element to contain each question, and we are going to configure the question to display in bold text using the strong element. We're also going to use the DD element to contain the answer to the question. A description list displays elements in definition form like in a dictionary. The description list will help us to organize terms and make the description terms stand out. These descriptions can be as long as needed to convey your message. Each term begins on its own line and is indented. We're going to start with a DL tag, and it's going to be nested. We're going to add a bit of interesting code. So our Emmet shortcut is going to be DL, and then I'm going to use my right angle bracket, and then I'm going to put in parenthesis DT plus DD. I'm going to go outside of that parenthesis, and I'm going to put times 3. I need to use the parenthesis to nest groups inside each other. I'm going to combine this with the multiplication operator so that I can duplicate the definition term and description 3 times. I found this code from utilizing the Emmet documentation webpage. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to highlight this and do Ctrl+D. I'm going to return that. I'm going to highlight this first one and do Control/. After the 3, I'm going to go ahead and put my cursor and select the Tab key. So between this first data term, I'm going to type the word strong and then tab. And inside of that strong tag, I'm going to type what is a yurt and a question mark. For the data definition, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in our luxury yurts. Okay, I've completed typing that. I'm going to go to the next data term, and I'm going to type in the word strong and tab. And inside of that, I'm going to type how are the yurts finished. And for the data definition, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in each. For my last data term, I'm going to type in the word strong and then tab. And I'm going to type, what should I bring? Oh, I forgot a question mark up here after finished. And then I'm going to type in my last paragraph, so I'm going to pause my video. I'm going to go ahead and save my page, Ctrl+S. I'm going to go out to my browser, and I'm going to refresh. And notice this is the index page, but I can also select the Yurts page now. And notice the Yurts page is now working, and these two links now work. Your hyperlinks at the top are now active. This video tutorial completes the 2 pages of the Pacific Trails Resort website. Thank you.